So in India, you have to begin with lower kindergarten, then senior kindergarten, then you have a primary school, secondary school, and a higher secondary. And from there on, you go to tertiary education, which is university or college. So India has multiple boards. So for example, every state has its own board, and that would follow its own assessments, its own curriculum, its own system. Similar way, you have CBSE, which is the central board run from New Delhi. You have independent boards from every state. You have ICSE, you have IB. So all these different boards exist at the same time, different regulatory bodies. I think the biggest challenge that I find in the education system in India is that during an educational exposure that a student has in schooling, assessment comes only twice, during class 10 and class 12. Until then, there are no substantial indicators of how well a student is performing. To me, that is quite a challenge because, unless you know the health of your learning, how would you address the remedy? In terms of education, there could be different challenges. In terms of dealing with the government, there would be different challenges. So, one can talk from both the perspectives that when you deal with the government, there are lots of requirements that they put us through in terms of inputs. So, for example, infrastructure, they need you to have a certain size of a building, they need you to have certain playground, certain number of washrooms per girls and per boys. So, lots of things before you can get recognition from the government. So, those laws are very, very difficult to comply in order to have a good quality school come into the market. So that's from the government point of view. In terms of education, as I said, assessment being the biggest of the challenge. The other thing I'm not quite happy with is teachers. Government offers 1-year Bachelor of Education program, which is a teacher training program. But within that 1 year, having done the degree, when they come to us practically in the school environment, we realize that we really have to teach them over and over again what relevant teaching methods are to the day that they could use in the classrooms. So the degree actually doesn't prepare them for the actual work life, and I think that's quite a big shortcoming. So my family has been in education for the last 28 years, and I've been running it for the last 4 years. We have 8 schools, of which I set up the last 6 in the last 4 years, and they are based in Gujarat, which is the northwestern part of India, and in a small coastal city called Jamnagar. That's where I have most of my schools. So 4 are set in the urban area and 4 are set in the quite rural areas. At the moment, we've just achieved a target of 5,000 students in our schools. It is believed that, according to a recent report that I read, that people on an average spend 30 to 50 pounds a year per child per year on their education. So it's really, education is a priority for them more than anything. So let's say if they had 100 pounds or 150 pounds, they would make allowance for their child's education, and that is their biggest priority. Everything else comes after that. So they can afford, and one has to keep in mind that when you talk about private schools, there's a huge spectrum of them, not just the elite or the upscale private schools, but you also have schools in the middle segment, you also have schools in the lower segment. For example, my schools, which classify as the low-cost private schools. So parents poor can still afford it. The school fees range from, for the lower kindergarten, it starts at $6, and for the senior level, the sort of higher senior level, it goes up to $10 a month. I think the choice is very clear, because in government school there is no accountability. You cannot question if the teacher doesn't turn up in the school or in the classroom for that matter, whereas in private school you can just question that why was my child not taught yesterday, why was the teacher absent. There is absolute accountability, because we fear that if we do not serve or if we do not follow a certain standard, they can just take their child away and go to another school, and that means losing enrollments. So accountability is a big issue for parents in government schools. Well, we offer everything that a good school should in terms of teacher training for our staff, management training, leadership training, good technology which is relevant to today's world and learning in 21st century. We offer good infrastructure. We offer everything, playground. It's all like a good school, as I say. So what technology probably would do is it will give you a more comprehensive knowledge in terms of what used to happen previously in a conservative environment in a school is that you have textbooks which are provided by the government. Sometimes you would use private publications to supplement those textbooks, and that was just about it, and beyond that whatever your teacher knew would be your source of information or knowledge. But having technology at your hand, a teacher would be able to explore new boundaries with students which are not just limited to books in front of them. So it's just going to go far and wide when technology comes handy, and then teacher would probably become more of a facilitator, more of a guardian, more of a mentor, rather than just being the sole source of information, which I think is wrong. I don't think it is limited to India, but the revolution is all about privatization at the grassroots level. It is believed that in India at the moment there are more than 300,000 private schools at the moment, and they are rapidly growing, and they're not going away anytime soon because parents are increasingly making a choice over government school to send their kids to a low-cost private school. And the phenomena you see from research of Professor Tooley, that it's in China, in sub-Saharan Africa, in South America, it's everywhere around the world. What other trends do I see? That's interesting because there are lots of trends, but it's difficult to predict which ones will die down and which ones are going to stay put in the market. But you will increasingly see that, you know, the previous conservative methods of learning probably will go out of fashion very soon because, you know, having a set curriculum probably will not be relevant in 20 years' time when the kids go out to get job in the real employment market. So curriculum doesn't stay relevant for all those years when we live in an age where everything changes so rapidly. So that's one of the major trends I see. The other thing is that, you know, you will find that learning will not always be teacher dependent. You will find open schools, you will find, you know, MOOCs, which is the new platform, you know, you can learn online, you can achieve certificates. So these are the big trends that are going to come in, but time will tell what's going to last. So digitizing education, or the digital technology in education, there are two ways of looking at it. One is from the learning point of view, where people are using internet increasingly in the classroom. You have these live smart boards which are connected to internet. People can just Google things. Students having learned a lesson, they go online, they look for information, you know, they summarize what they found out there, what they read, they critically appraise, and then they, you know, present that, and eventually that becomes knowledge. On the other side, when you look at technology, it helps you be in constant touch with parents. It helps you have a management system which can be replicated not just in one school, but let's say in 10 schools, in 15, in 20 schools. So technology, I think, is going to play a huge role in management in terms of communication with parents, teachers, and students, as well as in learning. I find that hard to believe because, you know, it's not going to change that. It won't be the case that you will have a place in future that kids just stay at home and learn at home. There is the other aspect of schooling as well, that kids need to come to a social environment, you know, mingle with other kids, have that sort of environment given by a school where they can just flourish, not just in learning point of, not just from the learning point of view, but in other qualities of life as well. So I don't think we will see schools going away. Perhaps they will be redefined in a different form, which will be much more creative and much more interesting and relevant to our current times, but they won't go away. Which skills cannot be taught in a digital way? I think in this day and age, you mostly learn things online. It's not impossible, but you know, having that one-to-one interaction with your teacher, having your teachers as your role models, having your leaders in the school as your role models, that is something that cannot just happen. It's a day in, day out experience that you live throughout your schooling life, and that inspires you as well as aspires you to do something in life.